Alright, guys. Welcome to my short little lecture on Shakespeare and all of his glory. I'm Josh. Um, Hope you guys are excited to learn more about Shakespeare and the Elizabethan era. Uh, yeah, let's get into it. So, why Shakespeare? Um, I have a couple reasons as to why people kind of dislike Shakespeare. Number one, he's old. Um, all of his stuff is old. They're outdated and stuff like that. He talks kind of weird. The Elizabethan English, I think that's what it's called, is very hard to understand, and even I can't really understand it sometimes. And lastly, he looks bald, but he has hair, so that's kind of weird. Um, why we should care about Shakespeare? Well, Shakespeare kind of influenced our culture today. He's a big influence on it. Um, he was kind of the first to do a lot of stuff in literature, and he kind of inspired all of, or most of the tropes that we see today, such as like the forbidden love trope, stuff like that, other genres of stories. And yeah, uh, by like analyzing his plays too, we can kind of have some historical context about England during the time. We get information about the Elizabethan era and how it was socially, economically, and culturally through his plays and characters. And lastly, he kind of tackles a lot of our modern issues today. Um, like, for example, like the roles of gender in society, uh, issues surrounding gender equality, and like kind of the art of cross-dressing and freely expressing like one's like gender identity. So yeah, that's kind of interesting, right? uh, Biography of Mr. Williams. So he was born in Stratford upon Avon, in England, in 1564. His father was a very well-known businessman and landowner. His mother was a wealthy, or a daughter of like a wealthy family. So kind of making Shakespeare like a bit like middle class to maybe even like slightly above middle class. Uh, so that meant he was kind of educated and stuff. That's probably why he can write very well. Um, yeah, he married fairly young, at the age of 18 years old, to a woman named Anne Hathaway, and he eventually had 3 children with her. So Shakespeare's career kind of kick-started when he first moved to London, and joined the traveling crew called the Lord Chamberlain's Men. He was an actor there and a member, and during that time he kind of wrote his like one of his earliest plays, Henry VI, Part 1, 2, and 3, and eventually like his career kind of peaked during the early 1600s after writing some of his like more famous plays like Macbeth, Hamlet, King Lear, and etc. Eventually, he retired to Stratford up in Avon after 2 long decades. So he had a pretty long and prolific career, in my opinion. So good for him. Yeah, the Elizabethan era. So what was it like? Well, it started during 1558 and ended 1603. That was the time span of Queen Elizabeth I's reign as like the ruler of that country. Um, it was often referred to as like the golden age of literature. A lot of art and like stuff started popping up because Queen Elizabeth was like a big fan of art and stuff. So lots of movie theaters and stuff like that. Lots of artists, and it was a great time to be an artist, I would say. Actually, no, because the bubonic plague kind of happened during that time. Never mind. Uh, Gender roles in society too. It was very patriarchal, in my opinion. Lots of strict gender roles for women, especially, and yeah. Was it that bad? A little bit. The again, the bubonic plague happened during the time. Rigid social hierarchy too. Big class wealth gap. So meaning like the rich gets all this stuff. If you're lower class, good luck. Uh, Usually means that you don't get education and stuff. You get like poor living conditions, work conditions too, and barely have any legal and social rights during that time if you're kind of poor. So again, I don't really think I need to dive into this too long because I'm pretty sure everyone knows this already. Um, it was regarded as one of the most fatal pandemics in human history just because like they had like bad medicine at the time and no understanding of like the disease, no defense and stuff like that. And yeah, so kind of have a question down here. How did Shakespeare survive? Honestly, I have no clue. He's probably like just extremely lucky. And good for him, man. Good for that guy. Um, a rigid social hierarchy. So again, big class wealth gap. Meaning the rich are like extremely rich. So like the royal family and the nobles. Um, and the extremely poor people, like the laborers and servants, kind of get nothing stuff. So there's a diagram or a chart, I guess, down below here. Um, Rich get like obviously they get wealth, school and stuff like that. Unlucky poor people they get nothing but hopes and prayers and poor living conditions. So yeah, was the Elizabethan era patriarchal society? Short answer is yes, it was. The gender roles, strict expectations of gender for women and men. Um, women oppression happened during the time, so stereotypes, lack of freedom, and a bad representation of women. So man equals authority, women will submit. That's kind of what I put down there. I think that was like 7 minutes already. Women during the 1600s, so limited education compared to men. Some education for women, but they're very basic. So like the middle class, richer type of women get very basic education. They don't really get that much employment opportunities just because of like, again, like their roles in society. Uh, Dress code, I think that's what I heard. Like they had like pretty strict dress codes. Like they gotta look modest and stuff like that. Um, Toxic expectations. So women are like to be submissive, obedient, and again modest. Uh, they're also like supposed to be the one who takes care of the children, and kind of like just fix the house and stuff. Make the house look good and livable for the men, the husbands. Um, Marriage too, it's like a big part of their life. It's often seen as a primary goal for women, uh, and they're expected to marry and bear children. So, vocabulary for Shakespeare. I have four here. First one's the sonnets. Basically, it's just a 14-line poem. I think there's a rhyme scheme to it too. Comedy usually starts off lighthearted and has like some sort of misunderstanding with the characters and stuff. But like comedic plays will always end like happily with no one dying. And like a common theme for comedies is like marriage, at the end of the story, so like a happy ending. Tragedy, like tragedy plays, on the other hand, are like parallel to comedy, so it'll always have like someone die. Uh, Sometimes like everyone dies, like in Hamlet. Spoiler alert. Uh, all tragedy stories usually have like a more serious tone throughout the whole narrative. And the last one is gender roles and how we are expected to act based on our biological gender. So if you're a woman, you do this, and that. If you're a man, you have to be this, stuff like that. Uh, the scholar I chose is Said Shawan. He's a professor at University of Hale. He has over 20 publications. He's that guy. He has like his works kind of. It's very. I want to say like very. What's the word? Like diverse. So he has like a paper on the impact of social media on literature, for example, and then like the rhetoric history of culture, nature, the return of the native, and then also the gender roles in the Merchant of Venice and Othello. So it's very diverse, and the arguments he made about his paper about gender roles in the Merchant of Venice and Othello kind of interested me a little bit, so that's why I kind of chose him. The main points of his paper basically is that characters act as like a lens to real life in Elizabethan. So roles of characters equal societal norms during the 16th century. So whatever we see in Shakespeare's plays, like the themes, characters, and etc., is what basically what the Elizabethan era was during the time. And I kind of found that interesting because I also agree with it. Like write what you know, I guess. He also highlights the roles of gender in Europe during the 1600s. So, what women were supposed to do, what men were supposed to act like. Talks about the usage of cross-dressing. Sorry, the they use it to like perform, or I guess women use it to perform roles for men. Um, Masculinity and patriarchy too comes up in his paper. Oppression towards women, cross-dressing as an escape away from that oppression. And this one kind of like interested me too, like how Shakespeare's like portrayal of like women in both his plays, like Merchant of Venice and Othello. And I guess like for most of his plays that have like women as like a main character, he kind of portrays them as like strong, intelligent, and like capable. And yeah, like he talks about how women in Shakespeare's story often like defy the narrative that women are not capable and intelligent, but cross-dressing is still needed. So even though they're strong individually, they still need to act like a man or dress up like a man in order to kind of be taken seriously during that time. So yeah, so I have a quote here. Again, pseudo-identity gives women the chance to counterattack patriarchy. The Shakespearean age, men have a great influential status as seen in Jessica's newfound freedom and power when she is dressed as a page boy. Jessica's use of a page boy's outfit helps accomplish the escape mission from her father by disguising as male characters. The female can accomplish remarkable roles meant for men. Shakespeare demonstrates the rewards of being male in a patriarchal society through cross-dressing. Shawan. Sorry. So we're going to be going We're gonna be transitioning to As You Like It. It's one of his comedy plays. I have a short summary for you guys here.
In the story of As You Like It,
I guess we'll just
Duke
like pretend that we watched the whole thing and we're back. All right.
Senior.
Oops. So the main characters, Rosalind and Celia, Orlando and Oliver, as you guys may have already like heard from that video, you know. Um, and yeah, the plot basically is about like being exiled, love and romance, cross-dressing, and misunderstanding and stuff like that. So yeah, it's actually a pretty fun play. One of my favorites, in my opinion. So Act One, Scene Three. This is the scene where Rosalind and Celia begin to cross-dress as a man, or yeah, to in order to like navigate the forest of Arden, just because they got exiled by Celia's father. Um, Sorry, my neck hurts. I have the dialogue here for you guys. Um, Alas, what danger will it be to us, maids as we are, to travel forth so far? Beauty provoketh thieves sooner than gold. Celia, I'll put myself in poor and mean attire, and with a kind of umber smirch my face. The like do you, so shall we pass along and never stir assailants. So, why is it dangerous for women to navigate outside of into the forest of Arden? So answering that question, we can kind of go back to the roles and stereotypes of women during the Elizabethan era. So women during this time were perceived as vulnerable, independent. Women being domestic and stuff, they're kind of known for being like the household caretakers, and this kind of makes them like an easy target for assault, harassment, and etc. It's because it's like a rare thing. Beauty provoketh thieves sooner than gold. Rosalind expresses the limitations of women, gender roles as domestic and submissive. She kind of talks about how the vulnerability of beauty. Sorry. So with beauty comes with like risk of exploitation. If you're a woman, you have the risk of being exploited, and she says how beauty is greater temptation than gold to thieves. So I don't think for when they said thieves, I don't think they actually meant thieves. Like in my interpretation, thieves kind of means like men with like the same like intentions, I guess, as thieves. If that makes sense. Um, During like the same scene too, we can kind of see the stereotypes of masculinity, and I kind of color coded it here just to make it kind of easier for you guys. Um, so the green part kind of talks about like the common traits of men. So like uh, tall, carries a weapon, rugged and stuff like that. And the blue, when she says we'll have us washing and a marshal outside, that kind of just means that they'll adopt a bold and confident like demeanor. And this suggests that like men are supposed to be like this tough and assertive person in order to be like kind of considered as a man, basically. um, and the red, as many other mannish cowards have that do outface it with their semblances. She's just saying that other cowardly men uh, hiding behind their facade. So even though that like many men like outwardly display this brave and tough persona, um, they're still cowards inside. Uh, this kind of implies that there is pressure for men also, not just women, but also men, to conform to like the traditional ideals of masculinity. So they kind of have to hide their vulnerability and sensitivity and stuff like that just to be considered a man. So I would say that's pretty toxic, but that's just me. Um, this scene kind of just talks about, or not talks about, but like it kind of highlights Rosalind's like cleverness and like wittiness. So like her intelligence and stuff like that is portrayed here. Uh, her as Ganymede, so like the guy or the persona she kind of takes on, has like a playful banter with Orlando. You should ask me what time of day there's no clock in the forest. And Rosalind's like, then there is no true lover in the forest. Else sighing every minute and groaning every hour would detect the lazy foot of time as well as the clock. So yeah, she kind of just like made that up in her head like on the spot. So that kind of just suggests that like she's like intelligent and like clever and stuff. She cleverly responds to Orlando's questions about the pace of time. She suggests that the absence of a clock in the forest implies that there's no true lovers present. She claims that lovers' expressions would mark time passing. And Orlando questioning her choice of words and stuff. And she kind of just explains humorously that time moves at different speeds for different people. And yeah, like this dialogue again like shows Rosalind's like intelligence and stuff, and ability to engage in witty conversations and banters. So what do these women have in common? So the women in The Merchant of Venice, so Portia, Nerissa, Jessica, like in summary, Portia and Nerissa cross-dressed as a male lawyer to kind of save Antonio, who was like kind of in trouble for like he kind of owes like the guy named Shylock like a pound of flesh, and he's like, no, I don't want to give you a pound of my flesh, that kind of hurts. And like Portia Nerissa like just shows up to court like all gangster or whatever, and kind of demonstrates like a deep understanding of the law, so kind of showing everyone that they're educated. And yeah, so basically they just tricked Shylock into forfeiting like his bond and saving Antonio's life. So yeah, good for them. Jessica like is the daughter of Shylock, and she kind of just challenges her father's authority by escaping with like her lover Lorenzo, defying societal norms, which is like female being dependent on like male figures and stuff like that. And again, like in As You Like It, Rosalind is kind of depicted as strong, resilient, and intelligent, displaying like wits and cleverness through like interactions with other characters like Orlando. She's very deceiving, sorry, and kind of using Ganymede as like a way to fulfill her desires, which is like to marry Orlando, because he's cool. She shows deep emotional intelligence too. During the time in the forest, she offers Orlando like kind of love advices and stuff, and that kind of shows wisdom and maturity in her character. So why do they need to disguise as a man if their characters are strong and independent? And what does strong female leads in Shakespeare plays needing to disguise their gender symbolizes? So again, it kind of just symbolizes like the limitations of gender. So despite being strong and despite being strong and independent, their gender kind of just holds them back. And adopting a male persona kind of symbolizes like inequality during that time. So in order to gain like freedom and respect, they have to adopt a male persona and like freedom to express too. So they don't really have that much freedom to express themselves. Because like lawyers have to be men and stuff, and women aren't wise enough to for love advice, or they shouldn't like display like desires for love. And yeah, so there's basically like gender limitations and stuff. This might be a reach. I kind of interpreted the Forest of Arden as a metaphor for freedom. There's a quote here by Duke Sr., but he basically says that the forest is sweeter than the luxury life that he experienced when he was like in the court before he was banished. The quote, more free from peril than the envious court. He's kind of saying that the forest is safer than the court because like the court is filled with like snakes, you know, filled with envy and competition, and the forest offers like freedom and safety from those dangers. And yeah, so like basically I have like more quotes here. And this our life, exam from public haunt, finds tongues in trees, books in running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything. So yeah, like Duke Senior, which is like sorry, I don't think I mentioned it, but Duke Senior is like Rosalind's dad, which is Celia's uncle. Yeah, so he kind of describes the forest as like a secluded place away from public eye. They find messages in nature and believes that everything in the forest holds some positivity and goodness. So is it a coincidence that Rosalind and Celia have to cross-dress as a man to navigate the forest, which is freedom? In my opinion, I don't think that it's a coincidence. I think it's intentional. Because basically nature typically symbolizes as freedom, usually, away from humanity and society. And like looking at the Elizabethan era, during that time, women often kind of lack freedom, and while they cross-dress to gain safety and agency to roam the forest, so Celia and Rosalind, there could be like a double meaning to it. And in order to gain freedom or travel through the forest of Arden, they kind of have to be a male to gain that freedom, which kind of symbolizes like men having the freedom in society and women are oppressed. Yeah, like due to like gender roles and stuff. So Rosalind and Orlando's marriage and the ending of the play. So during the 1600s, women have a goal of getting married, typically to like a man with more power. So in the end, Rosalind ends up marrying Orlando, which Rosalind is like a character, strong and independent, but she still kind of has to marry in the end. Shakespeare has his female characters who we see are strong and intelligent and independent, but still try to marry.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Where was I? Rosalind originally cross-dresses to protect herself, but she kind of uses it to marry herself off in the end, which kind of like highlights the woman's role in marriage in a patriarchal society. So, Shakespeare writing Rosalind and Orlando's wedding is a look into women's role. Thanks, bro.
You're welcome.
Look into women's role in marriage during the era. And yeah, like so when he wrote this ending, it kind of like just shows the women's role in marriage, that their role in society is to like marry and like bear children and take care of them, despite like being strong and independent. And sorry, it's like 11 o'clock in campus. But I'm almost done. Women in marriage, so noble women usually marry more for political power than love, typically. And without a husband, women should be viewed negative, or would be viewed negatively by the public. So, yeah, like while it is a happy ending, as like comedies usually are, Shakespeare showcases like the usual end goal for women in society through Rosalind's character. Um, and yeah, like that end goal again is like marrying in the end and kind of just, I guess, submitting to like men. So yeah, and I think that concludes our lesson for today. We didn't really talk that much about As You Like It, but hopefully like next time we can. And yeah, have a great night, guys, or good morning.